Today's topic is how to trade around earnings, and we will cover quite a bit of many different aspects of it. Um, and I will go over my own approach. I'm just pulling up the agenda here on my phone that I had prepared. That's why I'm looking away. I am on a single screen. Yes, this is being recorded. If you can't stay for the session and you have registered for this, you will get the recording for this webinar. So if you have to step away, that's perfectly fine. We will send you the recording in about a day or two from today. Um, so the agenda today is before we begin, I just want to collect some ideas. So we did last week we did how to tackle corrections in the market and to find the next best stock. That recording should have been posted already on our YouTube channel. Today's topic is around earnings and everything to do with earnings. If you have any suggestions on future topics or ones that I can cover or Richard or Nick can cover in the future, you can go ahead and put those in the chat right now. And please, all the questions that you have, please put those in the Q&A tab so that it's very organized and easy for me to get through the questions at the end of this session. I will be talking on this topic for about 30 to 45 minutes. And then we'll do a Q&A thereafter, and then we'll wrap it up to make it super worth your time. So one of the first things that I want to cover when it comes to earnings is the question that people have is, how do I make sure, am I supposed to hold or am I supposed to cash out? How do I know how much cushion is sufficient cushion, how much cushion is not sufficient for me to hold into earnings? So we'll answer that question first. So let's say I have a position and we're going to take let's just take Tesla, for example, because that's been a great one with earnings coming up. So if I hover over this red flag, so every time there's an earning within 7 trading sessions, you'll see a red flag that will pop up right next to the name. For you to turn that on, you go to column settings, which again is right to the symbol right here. The column settings will pop up, and under symbol, we move the earnings toggle over here. So if you turn that off, you won't see it. If you turn it on, you will see it. So once you do that, anything or any name that has earnings within 7 sessions will have a red flag next to it. Anything that's more than 7 sessions away will have a gray flag. So red means it's kind of urgent type of thing. You should start planning right around now as to how you will tackle it if you do have a position in the name. So I'm going to cover Tesla. Tesla reports on January 29, so about Wednesday after market close, it looks like. So let's say we hypothetically have a position, and I actually do have a position here, and I accumulated right around this 389, 390 area, right? So I'm up about 4.5 to 6.5% on this position. It rallied up as much as 12%, has pulled back and done nothing. The pullback's on relatively low volume. Now the decision that I have to make is going into Wednesday, right? If it were to hold my average price that I have, hypothetically, let's just say it keeps going sideways. How do I make the decision to keep a position or to get rid of it? Usually there's 2 rules of thumbs. One is you could check the implied move. The implied move uses the options market, and the options market says that I expect the volatility on this name around this earnings event to be 10%. And usually the implied move is what we get in line with, with what happens after hours. It gives you an idea. It's an approximation of volatility. It's not an exact, mathematical earnings happen, implied move says 10 has to be 10% up or down. It's not an exact movement, but it gives you a ballpark of what and how the options market is positioning for this particular event. That's one way to do it. The other way is you look at historical earnings on this name and see how much, and what if you don't want to look at the options market for an approximation, this can give you an idea, and you can look at the last 3 to 5 cycles to get an idea of how this name acts is it, naturally just and we're looking at absolute values when it comes to this. So if is it gapping up 10% on average, is it gapping down, gapping up or down 10% on average? And if your cushion is less than that, based on the historical volatility of this particular name, and it has a good, historical data to it, then you could use that to make a decision as well. The third way that you could do it is you keep a quarter of your position or a third of your position, right? But you have to then actively track it. You don't want to go in with 60% of your portfolio, 80% of your portfolio, 30% of your portfolio, right? Large sizes, with no cushion, which is, let's say, less than 7% on this particular name, when historically this name is telling you that it's pretty volatile and it gets directional in a huge way up or down on earnings. So you could use those three ways to kind of gauge if you're going to be in the name for the earnings cycle or not be in the name. This one is cutting it pretty close, right? It's dulling down, it's drifting lower, it's not allowing any person that kind of entered recently to stick around for earnings session. And that is, the nature of the market. It tends to do that a lot. But let's say you're long right from this area, right? On this particular day, back in October, you got long, you still have a position in this name and you're up a good 20 to 30%. Then you could use the 50-day average as a guide in that instance, and you're in a much better place to dictate if you're going to hold this or not. So this example is when you're cutting it close. Let's say we have Reddit. So I traded Reddit and I've sold out of this name recently. So I got involved right around this area, right? Right in the 60 to $65 range. And I got, let's say the earnings are coming up and I have to make a decision on this name, whether I'm going to hold or sell. That type of decision when your average is, literally about 120% lower from the current price is a lot easier to make, right? You're in the position to dictate, it's almost as if you have the freedom to see what happens. If it comes back down to the 50-day on earnings, or if it gaps up once more, you have the freedom to kind of look at it that way. Or even if you're long from this gap, you have enough of a cushion to make that decision. But even in that instance, you can go back, look at the implied move that the options market is kind of looking at. You could look at, how big is your position size. You could sell a quarter of it or a fifth of it or an eighth of it to feel like, okay, I don't want to give back too much because the expected volatility is high, right? But if you're long from these, earlier areas, you're in a much better position to dictate as if you want to hold into earnings or not. So one of the things that I tend to do when it comes to earnings, and I like watching earnings. It's something that as a trader or just being a big fan of the market and tracking things, I like to go to the 5 minute or the 15 minute and just take a look at what's going on after hours, right? When something is reporting. So if we take a look at Netflix, which was a recent report, and Netflix gapped up. If we go to the 5 minute over here. And I like to have, some of the key earnings that I'm watching up on a 5 minute just to see what's happening, what's going on. And Netflix was a big one, right? A big bar rallies up and out and kind of stuck. And then the next day when it opened, if we go to the daily, it kind of washed out and is now trying to build a consolidation. So I like to watch it on the 5 or 15 minute, especially the big names, mostly because they will dictate much of the action in that space. A lot of the high liquid big cap stocks will dictate that action. Um, you can also have on the screener, we have a couple of presets that we set up for earnings. So earnings next week, earnings next month, recent earning winners. So all of these are kind of built for you to see, so Apple is reporting relatively soon. So on January 30th. So this is another one. So some of these presets are built within Deepvue. So if I go to earnings next week, I will go through some of these names to see what's happening. I try to pick ones with, I would say, there's an earnings preset that we built that I'll also cover here. Right about here. Sorry, I'm on a single screen, so everything's kind of. So if the earnings are pre-market, I will have my pre-market column set up. And this one should not have shares float and CEO founder. So this will tell you pre-market volume, right? And post-market volume. So if something's reporting pre-market, you want to have this column preset up, which is the earnings pre-market. And then if you're something's, you're looking at your after hours watch list, you can have this one. This one tracks the post-market price, the post-market volume, the post-market price percent change, and how heavy the volume is. When I'm on and watching, there's two key metrics that I'm looking at. And those are these two right here, right? How much of the float is being traded after hours? So let's say we have a company that's relatively young. A couple of examples come to mind recently, like let's say IoT, right? It's reporting after hours. It's a huge surprise as to what's happened. It's a huge earnings event. They were expected to report, let's say, a negative EPS, and for the first time ever, they've reported a positive earnings per share. That's a huge surprise to the market. They weren't estimated to do that. The guidance didn't say they would do it, and there's a huge, event, a catalyst that's happened. That catalyst is going to show up as volume in the markets, right? Because as market participants, we always place our bets. When we place our bets, we place a trade, and we place a trade that creates volume. And these two metrics, the post-market volume versus the average 50-day post-market volume, and the post-market volume versus the shares float, right? When these two are high and things are running after hours, these two metrics, when you have them up in your column, and you could sort your earnings watch list by them, they will give you a clear picture of something unusual or something significant is happening, right? When something is trading, let's say 20% or 30% or 50% of its average 50-day volume post-market, that means that there's a lot of interest in the catalyst or the earnings that have happened. The surprise element is heavy, right? So you can gauge that by this particular data point. The second one is how much of the float is being traded. So essentially, float is number of shares that are available in the markets, right? So if a company has 200 million shares available and the post-market volume is, let's say, 20 million or 30 million, the percent of float that you're trading is also a significant measure of, a key measure of interest as to what's happening after hours. So I really like to have this earnings after hours if it's post-market and earnings pre-market column sets up. We have pre-configured the columns that are key for you, and these two are the metrics as well. I believe we also have pre-market and post-market volume versus the 20-day if you want to use that. So we do have that 20-day as well. And the same thing with pre-market. We also have the 20-day. So it's all personal preference as to which one you want to use, but these two key metrics is really something you want to hone in on. I know a lot of traders tend to track earnings dates. So let's say we run the earnings next week and they come up with a earnings watch list. I don't tend to do that. What I tend to do is just put up the post-market gap ups and the post-market movers screens that we have. So if I do the post-market movers, this will tell me what's moving after hours, and then I will tie that into the earnings, the column preset for post-market. So sorry, I'm trying to move the windows around at the same time. So I'll have something like this up, which just tells me what's moving after hours and what's happening to kind of keep it simple that way. I know folks that look at, you can screen for the earnings, expected earnings for the next quarter or expected to grow based on estimates by X amount, right? Or you can scan for guidance data, which we're about to add next week into the platform. So a company has reported above expected guidance, right? That's usually a good sign. If their analysts are expecting a company to make 300 million for that particular quarter, or 500 million or a billion, and they say, no, our guidance is about 2 billion. Well, now you have a huge surprise element as well. It's catching the analysts off guard at the same time. So that's another way. There's many, I'm trying to give you guys different ways to think about it. The simplest way for me is the way I do it is I just run the pre-post market movers. I have them up on my screen. I have the earnings after hours up, and I'm watching which stocks are popping up on that screen. And if something is having significant volume versus its 50-day average volume or its 20-day average volume, pre or post market, that's something of interest. I take a look at it and make a decision on if that's something I want to watch the next day as well. I want to get into the next thing I want to get into is screening for surprises, right? So if a company is about to, and I have a good example of this in, let's say, Uber a while ago. So Uber's not, it's kind of pulled back, but this particular run that started right about here, and then the second earnings, and then the third earnings, where we took the stock from about 20 to 60, it was a double over a couple of earnings cycles. What happened was they reported the first positive earnings per share. So they were not expected to hit profitability on EPS, earnings per share, for quite a while. And this was kind of the first time there's a surprise element. Hey, this company is profitable, wasn't expected to be profitable for the next couple of quarters, but they've achieved that all of a sudden a couple of quarters ahead of time. And what the market does is essentially the price catches up to the value that the company is providing in their numbers. And that's why we see the run in essentially for a couple of quarters in Uber all the way up to $80 from 20. So that's something I like to scan for, and we have a screener preset that's already built in. If you go under the earnings, we have the earnings and sales surprise last month. So this looks at all the earnings that were reported in the last month and gives you stocks that have reported, and I'll pull up the criteria here. of a earnings surprise of 20% or more and a sales surprise of 20% or more. It's a very basic scan. It casts a wide net as to what has happened or how many companies can meet that criteria. And then thereafter, it's kind of your job to go, company by company to make a decision on if it meets, if it's a huge surprise, if it's something you want to track, or it had a high volume event, which I'll cover in a few here. Then it becomes a candidate for me to go track and put it on my watch list. So tracking earnings surprises, sales surprises, there's a preset for that under our earnings folder as well. So pretty much anything. So we also have recent earnings winners. What that scan looks at is the price percent change from the last earnings cycle is greater than 10% or more. This one looks like we have the wrong date configured. So last month. Why? So that should be good now, but I'll take a look at if that's working on. It might be a bug that we haven't gotten to just yet, but essentially it looks at the price percent change from the last earnings cycle. So this is another scan that gives you really key information on which stocks are moving up on earnings. And this could also be a pseudo high volume scan or a episodic pivot scan or a PED or a PEG, whatever you want to label that on the charts. So that's another one. I would highly recommend you guys take a look at each of these. They all have a purpose to them and as to how they are supposed to be used. The most important part is, in the metrics, you want to be aware of the earnings pre-market and post-market column sets, and then the two things that we covered with the volume metrics. That's really the most important measure of interest. And if something of significant value, in terms of a catalyst has happened on the charts. Okay, so okay. Next, I want to cover the last thing that I have up is how I tackle the high volume gaps. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of people that do this, and I'll get into the nitty gritty of the examples and how I track these things, and then I'll take a few questions. Looks like there's already 23 open questions, which we'll get into in a few here. So let's say let's just go through the HV watch list. We could pretty much pick any example. We'll pick a failure because I think those are important to highlight, and we'll also pick a good one that has ran recently. So the one that I want to go with is something like this. This one's been a really good one recently, but likely not an earnings one. Let me know if there's one that you guys would want me to cover. But this one's been a really great one. So if we look at APP and the run in APP, right? And what happens is essentially a stock is in a downtrend, right? So if we take APP, significant downtrend that's happening. And what happens is to get out of the significant downtrend, something must happen, right, for the company to recover. So there's a downtrend. We see these earnings, there's a gap on earnings here. It doesn't really do anything. It's all within the context of a larger downtrend, right? And what happens is right about, I would say the most definitive one is a earnings gap right about here, right? That's where the story starts to turn and the stock starts to, I'll get rid of these lines to make it less confusing. The stock starts to turn around, and I'll cover exactly why I'm saying the stock starts to turn around right about here. So we gap up on earnings. This is the highest volume. So there's in the highest volume bucket, there's the highest volume ever. The highest volume ever is the most significant volume signature that you want to be aware of in the markets. The reason for that is every stock, if you go historically, that has had this volume signature and then acted well thereafter has this statistically based on all the studying that I have done, they have the best chance to double in the next 6 to 8 months. And the highest volume ever is a single daily volume stick that happens on the chart is tied to a catalyst in the markets. Could be a story-based, earnings-based, surprise-based, short sellers coming out, and then the stock still rips up and produce CVNA is a good example of that. Whatever it is, but it produces the highest volume ever, and that's the daily candle being the highest daily volume it's ever seen in the history of that stock. That's the biggest one you want to be aware of. The second one that you want to be aware of is the highest volume since IPO. And stocks like ALAB, before they take off, right? So we had this IPO run, we come right back down, right? How does this run start? What can be the first thing that gives me a definitive way to look at ALAB is the highest volume since IPO. That happened on this particular day, October 9. So when I'm doing my screening, one of the first scans that I run on a daily basis is the highest volume scan. It includes the highest volume since IPO, includes the highest volume ever. The highest volume since IPO, if we look at some of the significant runs in the market, like Facebook slash Meta, Roku, Square, PayPal, some of these 300%, 400% runs, when they IPO'd, they kind of follow this structure, right? And if you guys have taken the IPO masterclass that we did or read the book by the IPO folks, it goes into this phase. They've labeled these different phases, but the most significant event that can happen to a young company is it shows the highest volume since IPO, volume signature. It's the second most important, the most successful as well. If an IPO gets the highest volume ever, you definitely want to be aware of that, right? That's a huge catalyst for a company. Something significant has happened. You can call this, all this was accumulation, sure, but this is where it really starts to turn around, right? It goes from 60 to 150. So that's the second one that you want to be aware of. The third one is, and these are the weaker ones, in my opinion, is the highest volume since a year. So the volume signature that you see, the stock is now, it has shown the highest volume in the past year, but it's had higher volume in the past, for example. That's the third one. The fourth one is the highest volume since last earnings. These two, the highest volume in a year and the highest volume since last earnings, they are weaker if we were to rank the highest volume ever and highest volume IPO. I always pay attention to stocks like BE. This is the highest volume that BE has ever seen, 62 million on the gap. When I kind of didn't have this on my radar. Richard brought it up right about here, right? I started tracking it immediately. This is the highest volume ever. I need to be aware. I was off away from the markets for a month, had a newborn, so I wasn't, completely caught up with my watch list and all. He brought this up, and this run that we were seeing after a company gaps up and shows you the highest volume ever, you want to laser focus on that. This company has the best chance of going from 20 to 40 in the next 6 to 8 months. I have to find a way, edges and entry tactics and setups and all that, but it all starts with this candlestick right here, right? So these are the ones during earning cycles that I'm most paying attention to. These are the ones that I have a whole watch list, the high volume watch list that I track these on. And the highest volume ever, every time I see that, gets the most amount of attention from me because statistically, they are most favored to do well. Same thing with Snow recently. So when the market went into the sideways flag formation and the world was about to end for some folks, I started tracking this one right about here because it went into a relative strength phase. It started outperforming the markets as the market was coming back in, right? The last 7 sessions were in a positive market cycle. This thing's rallied up about 6.5 to 8%. Again, this isn't the highest and the fastest mover in the markets, but it has this signature, which is the highest volume ever, which tells me it has a good chance of leading if this space is the lead, uh, and the stock itself is the lead, the industry group and the markets align, then this has a significant chance of rallying up. That's why it became a huge focus of mine right about here. It showed the RMB. It's in a relative strength phase. I'm accumulating stock here. It's rallied quite a bit, not quite a bit, but for a few sessions to the upside, right? So that's another thing that that's another reason that I've been focused on Snow. I've traded this one. I've traded OKLO. Is the same thing. If we look at how did this run in OKLO start, and it's really obvious. It's really obvious what happened. OKLO's story, whatever the case was, changed first right about here, which was, again, the highest volume since IPO. Again, it all starts with a volume signature, right? Could be an earnings base, catalyst base, whatever. This is not around earnings. They didn't report anything, but something changed for the company right about here. That showed up in the volume signature. It consolidates sideways by 7.5. And if you guys follow the work that I've done, 7.5 is a significant whole number in the markets, consolidates around that. But when the majority picked it up is right here. This is the highest volume ever. Became really, really obvious that something's just about to change in this particular company. This has to be a focus because on this day, you're supposed to tell yourself this company has the highest chance of doubling in the next 6 to 8 months, the highest probabilities, no definitives in the market, of doubling in the next 6 to 8 months because it's shown the highest volume ever signature, right? You make this your laser focus, you're focused on this name, and what happens is if you're focused, it gives you a chance to at least participate somewhere in this run, right? And what happens is this goes from 10, which was over here, to 41, right? And now this is the talk of the town, right? It's the talk of the town, but the run started at 7.5. The run started at 10 because this was the highest volume since IPO and because this was the highest volume ever, right? So that's why I'm significant amount of effort that I put in the markets is to find these type of setups because if I do, let's go to CRNC, right? This one I traded significant size on, significant size. Why? The market was pulling sideways. This stock was in a relative strength phase, continued to outperform the markets as we went into this correction, flagging, pullback, choppy, whatever you want to label it, market. The stock had the highest volume ever. This was a laser focus. I was dumbfounded as to why is CRNC not pulling back when the Nvidias or the semis or all of these things are lagging. Why is this stock not pulling back? It's supposed to be trashed. It's a lower price mover, right? It is a smaller market cap company. There's no reason for anybody to hold on to any of this, yet it's going sideways in a relative strength phase while the market's pulling back, right? Why was it of interest? It's the highest volume ever right here, followed by follow on, follow through volume, and the highest volume into $5. When that happens, this is a focus. You got to put this on your focus list. You have to find a way to position. I built a position right about here, and not all of these, and just to be really, really clear, will quickly result in going to 27.5. This will not happen every single time. But statistically, this volume signature, when it happens over here, over the next 6 to 8 months, if you study these enough, they have the best chance to double and then some in price. And just so happens this one, they partnered with NVIDIA. It works out for you once in a while. This is a one in 10 year event when you go from 7 to 27.5. I'm not going to pitch you that every single one is going to do this, but focusing on that volume signature, focusing on the earnings catalyst, right? Doing tracking what's happening around earnings. Is the volume on this significant post-market? What's happened in terms of a catalyst? Is there a big earnings surprise that's happened on this company? What's changed? But whatever it is, that's people are placing bets on this name, and that those bets or those positions or whatever you want to call it shows up as volume, and that's the highest volume ever, right? And I can't stress that enough. It absolutely important, right? As a swing trader, position trader, however you want to label yourself, it doesn't matter. But this volume signature should be at top of your head as well. So that was the last thing on my agenda today that I wanted to cover that I feel should be paid most attention to. Why earnings or season is really important, how to navigate it within Deepvue. We have quite a few presets and quite a few scans. You can scan for the highest volume ever in the screener. So we have those pre-configured for you as well. So if I go to high volume, so we have the HV Edge, highest volume ever, highest volume in a year, highest volume since IPO. These are important to my trading, so we've made sure these come into the platform. They each have a description next to them as well as to why they are important. So at this point, there's 43 questions in the Q&A. I'll do my best to answer as many. So we've been at it for 35 minutes. And for the next, I would say 20 minutes, I'll answer questions to try to get as many of them as possible. Again, if you guys have to hop off, I do appreciate you taking your Saturday and 35 minutes of your time and joining this session. If you have to step away, we'll send you a recording. That's perfectly fine. I understand it's a Saturday and people have busy lives. So I'll start with the first question. Can you show again how to put RMV and the plus on your charts? So the RMV, I go to indicators and strategies. We have this indicator called DV technical patterns. Add that to your charts. Once you add it, I go to settings. I turn off everything else. That's just, I don't use much of this stuff. I turn on RMV and then I put the settings to 21.7, and then I go to style, and then under that RMD, I just change that to a plus. This they call it cross, and then just give it some opacity. That's up to you on how you want to make it, and then I put it below the bar. Once I do that, these pluses just tell me the type areas that show up. So when I positioned in snow, which was this day, it's in a relative strength phase. It's tightening price action versus itself. It gives me a really clear low to put my risk on and put some size on this name. And I have a really clear definitive risk. There's a whole webinar that Richard did on relative measured volatility. There's about 2 or 3 that he's done. Absolutely killer webinars on RMB and why it's important. I never kind of make things part of my system just because I've tried VWAPs, I've tried anchoring them, I've tried different moving averages, I try everything, but nothing makes it to my system until I'm confident, and RMD has made it to my system. So absolutely check those out. It helps you define risk. So relative strength phase, the RMV shows up with the 21.7 settings, and then I can define my risk and see if I could get some run out of it. Same things have happened on many of these names. So I get interested, when this is going sideways, still underperforming, goes into a relative strength phase. It was tightening price action. Now volumes come back in. I got involved in this name right about here, rallied up 36%. I messed this part up, so I don't own it at the moment. When it pulled back in, I sold it into strength because it was 36% move in a span of 4 to 6 days. Like beautiful, a start to the year. Sold the whole thing, and I just didn't buy back for this run. So, but again, it helps you define risk. It helps you find tight areas. Same thing on BE. It was tightening right about here. So when it came in here, went into a relative strength phase. I got involved on this day, sold it right about here, and it rallied up Friday. I bought it back, and I have a position in this again. So it's a tool that helps you define risk, and that's how you put it on your charts. When do you expect dashboard presets to be available with some of viewer or other traders? So we will work on that. Dashboard is going to be a huge focus of February. You'll see a lot of different apps that we will be adding, which will take some of the data that we have from sector rankings, breadth data, markets, simplified charts for the dashboard, and you'll see a lot more presets come out. And we have a dedicated developer that just started. Will be starting on Monday, just for the dashboard itself. Is there a place where all the previous recordings are kept? Everything that we do makes it to YouTube. So youtube.com/deepvue. The second place you want to go is education on the left if you're in and if you are a subscriber. You go to education tab on the left, and all of them are available here. So if you go under events, all of our previous events will be available. If you go under tutorials, all of our previous tutorials are available. When you click these, they will load in line like that, and they will start playing. So if you're a subscriber, they are all available here. If you're not a subscriber, you could go to youtube.com/deepvue. Do we have a way to screen for gap downs on earnings for prior time periods last within a week? Yes. We do have that capability. If you go under screener presets earnings, away for earnings gap down. So we don't have that yet, but what I think you could do is you could, instead of screening for earnings winners, you could screen for earnings losers, right? So percent change from last earnings less than 0 will give you all the earnings gap downs. And I will make that a preset after this webinar today. How should one take implied volatility to my trading strategy, and what site is best used for implied volatility, and will you have it in the future? We will have implied volatility in the near future sometime. I would say this quarter. I don't have an exact date for it. The best website for it, I have a website. I don't remember the name of it, but I'll find it. And if you can ask hello@deepvue.com, and I can reply to you via support. And if there's enough interest, I'll just post the website as part of the email that we send out as well. I think it's optionsslam.com. Yeah, Craig Master. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Craig. Yeah, optionsslam.com has that data. You type in a ticker and it will give you the implied volatility. It's not an exact calculation. Just nothing in the markets is exact or absolute. That's just like a blanket statement, applies to everything. But it gives you an approximation of volatility. It's not always, pinpoint accuracy type of calculation. I would actually like you guys to see you guys put an E just to the right and above of the last candle, and when hovered over. Yes, that is something of interest to us. We will definitely do that. It's part of our plans, and it's also part of our plans to move to what we will call Deepvue charts, which will be a lot faster, more features. We control the experience a lot better, and they will bring something new to the markets that folks don't see charts the way they do right now. They're very simple, they'll be simple, powerful, but we'll have everything that we've always wanted. Over the next couple of months, we'll be talking more about that. Where do you check the implied move for Tesla? We just covered that, optionslam.com. We will have it in Deepvue. We don't have it just yet. What is the plus? The plus is RMV. I just covered that. What moving averages do you use on intraday? Random question. I don't use moving averages on intraday. I use moving averages on daily, the 21, 50, and the 65 EMA. 21 simple, 50 simple, and the 65. 65 is from Ross. 21, 50, and 65, yeah. Okay, so a class on finding and analyzing stocks like you did on Reddit at 9 minutes into the video would be great. Also on technical patterns, definitely. Yeah, I've definitely covered Reddit trades and all these things before. I definitely want to get back into the swing of doing some of these walkthroughs again. I enjoy doing them. They make me better. And definitely we used to do them with Richard a while ago, so definitely we'll be doing those. How do you get the flag to come up next to the stock? We just covered that. So if you go to, so you have your symbol column. So you have your symbol column. You go to column settings, this gear icon. We'll make it easier very soon. But column settings come up. Under the symbols, you could turn on and off the earnings flags. So when you turn it on, this red thing shows up for ABG. When you turn it off, it disappears. So it's automatically saved. The settings are automatically saved in the background. Cool. Does Deepvue have a watch list for all tickers with earnings coming up in the next trading week? Yes. So you go to screener presets, and earnings next week. And these are all the earnings that are coming up next week. So we have a screener preset. We can make it a list as well, I guess, a watch list. But it's essentially a screen that is being run. I'll put a copy of this preset. Just share the link in the chat over here. Perfect. Okay. There's a lot of interest in the pluses. That's RMV. Do you have guidance data available? Is it coming? Guidance data will be available next week. I tested it on our staging this past week, and we will have it for the next 3 quarters or the next 3 years in the platform. It will be scannable. We'll have also 10 years of historical guidance data that will be available as well. So that will be awesome. And the best part is you will get to scan for it. You'll get to see it as well. And we're going to incorporate it in the stats table. I've not been able to find the earnings after hour preset. Can you help with that? So yes, first thing you want to do is go to a screener presets, earnings. You could do earnings next week or next month. I like to just do the post-market or the pre-market movers. So if I do post-market movers, these are the ones that are moving. I go to column settings again, this button right here, column settings, oops, column settings. And then under this drop down, I go to column presets, earnings, and then I choose one or the other, pre or post, depending on what you like. I have RMV at the bottom, but don't have the plus. How do you get them on the chart? I just covered that. There's a lot of interest in RMV. Can you please comment on the strategy of hedging with puts? I don't get into that type of world. As a swing trader, I personally feel it complicates the equation quite a bit. I like to keep it simple. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It definitely works. If you have a huge position and let's say you want to keep a 50%, 65% position on a single name going into earnings and you're expecting huge volatility and you have millions in that name, that becomes a really good idea to then do some hedging. Have to track this and that. You're learning a lot more, but you're getting a lot less out of it. And that's just my opinion of how I feel about that. So hedging is a good strategy at scale, not a good strategy. It's a distraction when you have a small account. Is the post-market volume versus average 50-day volume updated every data point in Deepvue that is technical based on price, open, high, low, close, and volume is real time, and it's updated real time. So How does pre-market relative strength factor into your trading around earnings for stocks that you aren't already in? I don't think of pre-market strength as relative strength. I think those two concepts are separate from each other. If a stock is coming into the earnings cycle in a relative strength phase, this is something that I'm studying. The chances of it continuing or acting well become significantly higher than if you take a laggard that has been underperforming the markets and goes into earnings. It's almost like a tell that it's not going to do well. So there's a that's how I factor relative strength into it, but I don't look at pre-market data and say there's relative strength. Um, how far back does that screen pick up HV companies? So we don't, we're working on time series or time range screening. That will be out sometime in February this year. And then you can run a screen on a span of time going back as far as 2 years to get all your HVs, for example. But at the moment, it's a current day screen. But the time range screening is coming in Feb. Please cover PLTR. Let's do that. So if we take a look at PLTR, a lot of people dislike Kramer for saying what he said. It's pretty funny. But I mean, there's not much to cover here. This volume was the highest volume since the last earnings cycle, right? The run on this name, and a lot of people won't be surprised when they see this, is if we take a look at this, the run started right about here at $9, right? This was the highest volume PLTR has seen in over a year. This was the highest volume in 1 year, right about here. And it also started to act really, really well, right? Whereas on these gap ups, you gap up, there was a good run there, but it faded all the way and it didn't act too great thereafter. Whereas this is a lot different. When you do this, right, it gaps up, comes back in, you expect that this day would fade right back in and it will go right back into the moving averages. It didn't do that. So that's when the run started. This is highest volume in a year. That's why it makes it significant. That's why you want to track these. That's like, this is where the run started for this. It went into a relative strength phase, right? Now people will say that I could do the same thing over here. Okay, it gapped up on 197 million shares. Awesome. You track it the next day, follow on, follow through. Good start. Okay. It comes back. Okay, even this is fine. That's fine. This is not fine. This day is not fine. That means the character of the stock stayed the same as it ran up and into it. It should not have kind of come in and kind of collapsed on itself, and it collapses more, 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 more. This tells you the character of the stock has not changed. But when it does this, this day right here, and I'll pause right there, this is a significant day. This is saying I'm done pulling back like I used to, and I'm now changing my character as a stock, and it's the highest volume in a year. And you start to look at what happens, right? Respect for moving averages comes back down, tightens up again, remounts, goes, goes, goes. And then what happens is I traded this right here, and it happens again. There's a tightness after the gap up, so 21.7 RMB gives you a really tight risk area, and then goes, 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 and then goes into another bigger consolidation, and then it happens again, right? Into the $20 mark. This is a significant day going into a whole number for with the highest volume, 7, 5, 10, 15, and 20. This is 20. This also trapped everybody here. Everybody in this area was completely trapped as a short. Goes into a relative strength phase. You do these real time, right? Analyze these real time, and then it keeps going and going, right? Every gap, it gets better and better. This is where it's like, okay, it's on a tight rope. This is a concept from David Ryan. Like, it's on a tight rope of the 10-day. Pure accumulation. This is pure accumulation. On the weekly, people will call this wall of blue because it's all blue volume sticks for a couple of weeks, right? And now this is where we are. This straight run will get consolidated. If you're not in it just yet, it's perfectly fine. If you're in it from here, you stay in the name. There's not much else to analyze. But this is like, I go back and I look at these situations. You'll see my markups. There's nothing really fancy. You're just looking for volume signatures. These are key to trading. So Okay, I hope that helped. How do you enter Twilio on Monday? How do you enter Twilio on Monday? You don't have to enter Twilio on Monday. If it only lets you enter, that's when you do it. So, um, you look at the character of the stock, it has the ability to do something like this above the 10-day, like just keep you out of it. The 10-day obviously is much lower because of the gap. It will start to catch up. How do you enter? So this name is the highest volume since I would say a year, right? Just eyeballing it. Um, I would uh, see if it respects this low. After the gap, there wasn't much of price action expansion or movement. So it's like a tight candle. It's also done that over here. And the run starts when it trades in the wick and goes up and out. So I would be doing the same thing. If it opens above the prior day's close, that means it's going to trade in the wick. And you want to see it, open in 137, 136 area, go up rally and take out 140 and close above 140. So I would start watch for that open. If it gets above the prior day's low, it will start to weaken and will need some time. But if it wants to go and do something like this, it will be in the wick, up and out, close above the prior day's high, and then rope up, just like this, if it wants to do that. Obviously, we won't know until we see the action, but that's how I would plan for it. So my risk will be relatively tight, probably the low of this candle at the very least. Okay, so we have 5 more minutes, so I'll keep going. It would be great to have an early entry webinar. We'll definitely do that. Same example as with A-Lab with 25 minutes into the presentation. Yep. Does Deepvue have a watch list? Already answered this. Are HVE and HV since IPO indicators available on volume/chart indicator? We don't have labels just yet. We are working on that. Obviously, when we created the volume indicator, which has been copied thousands of times on TradingView by different folks, we will bring that functionality to Deepvue. And it will be part of what we're moving to our own charting engine, and they will have exactly what we want instead of this charting engine, which is very highly limited in its capabilities. Can you have any do you look at any fundamentals for highest volume, or it's pure technical? I personally take a look at um, volume and the price action. Anything outside of it, for me, I'm not good at judging. Um, I would say the catalyst. I am working on it. I've been working on it over the past like 2 years to see, okay, this company has reported or said this. Is that a consistent type of surprise? Whereas if another company in this situation, let's say 2 years down with a different name, does a similar thing, do they see the same reaction? I base my trading a lot on precedents, and has it happened in the past in a similar situation that applies to the current situation, then I have a lot of conviction. So that's how I but that takes time to build. So over the past 2 years, I've just been writing out catalysts and their reactions. So if a company has a gap up on earnings with a new CEO, is that a positive reaction that is consistently applicable to any company that comes there, thereafter? So like these type of catalysts, I'm trying to categorize them. It's going to be a huge process for me to take those catalysts and apply them to my trading, but it's a thing that I've been doing like a year and a half-ish for in 2 years, just writing out, this company gapped up on this reason, the price action was positive, the earnings was this and that. But for now, I'm a purely technical because that gives me most confidence, and everything else is just for me is garbage at the moment. But I'm trying to get better at it. Can you we already reviewed Twilio. CRNC at 32 minutes, love the chart notes, excellent way. Thanks, Mike. Can you elaborate your entry on CRNC? I have done so many times on X, but it's essentially a highest volume ever into 5 and 7-5 with your whole numbers. That happens. It's in a relative strength phase while the market was pulling back in and choppy. It gave me a lot of conviction to start to accumulate a position in it. And a couple of days before the gap up, I was like, I want to put a large portion of my account into this because I don't see a reason why it's not pulling back. As I accumulated, and then it blew up to the upside. So there's a part of it is like luck because you're in an HVE, it's going to double, or has the highest chances of doubling, and CRNC was just a perfect storm. You get lucky when you work hard. So I'm not saying like every stock is going to do that. This is awesome. Thank you. How do you find? We already covered this. Sorry for the late. Yes, the recording will be available and sent out to the people on the list. Do you have a chat support system to help navigate the platform? Yes, we do. Every Tuesday, we have an onboarding session, and we're going to get into one-on-one onboardings for new signups and subscribers, and also old ones that want a walkthrough in a one-on-one fashion. We're going to start those as well. And anytime you guys have a question, in the bottom left, if you go to messages, and just send a message to support or ask them, right? Um, and we highly encourage that. If you do have a question,
It's
just
12 o'clock.
let us know. We also have a knowledge base which has every single feature that we've ever put out in the application is fully documented over here. That's also available. And you can all anytime just contact us, right? Contact us, ask us a question, report something, or request a feature. I highly encourage, like you can almost abuse this in a way, but we have the team and the staff to take care of you if you have these type of questions. Did you buy back OKLO at a lower price? I did not buy back OKLO. That was this has been one of my things. Like it remounted, and then this day I took the trade in RKLB. It's the same day RKLB broke out, and I took that, and I couldn't get into this because I couldn't justify my risk. And then this sucker rallies from 25 to 40, and RKLB just does a 2-day run. So sometimes that happens in the markets as long as you have the right names um, on your radar. You catch, the 4-day 36% run, you catch it, and then you don't catch this one. It happens. So I got RKLB 25 to 30, traded that, then I couldn't justify getting into this one over here. It's way too stretched. I don't want to be in a situation where I buy it right here and then it pulls like that. It'll be a waste of a trade. I can't define my risk as well. So I missed this portion of the run I missed, this portion of the run I caught. So okay, implied volatility, we've answered that. Can the videos have in the minutes a description of subjects? Yes, we always put those. We'll put the timestamps. When will the journaling feature be available? We'll start working on it in March. So sometime in April, we'll have an MVP. How long do you wait for the HV after HV happens? This is a really generic question. When folks ask like, how long do you wait? I can't answer that with like I wait 20 minutes or I wait 5 days. I don't know. You judge the situation and you trade the situation. If you're early in the market cycle, you see a HVE, probabilities of that working are a lot more. If you're late in the market cycle and you see an HVE, the probabilities of them failing, like ASAN did, right? It rallied up, market got pretty bad. We're late in the market cycle. The expectation is it's going to pull back because we're late in the market cycle. The risk appetite for the market as a whole does not exist for this to go from 20 to 40. If that was early in the market cycle, the market would help this stock rally to the upside. It's just that we're late in the market cycle, so we got, it blew its tires, and then it blew its tires. It remained in it's underperforming the markets consistently. So you don't want to get involved in this. A lot of people will chart this and still say, hey, we can get this action, but it's underperforming. If it's underperforming the markets, it's a laggard. It's a pig. Pigs get slaughtered. It's gonna get slaughtered because we've had last 7 days for this to rally. It has not rallied. There's no reason for you to have it on your focus list, wide list, this list, and that list. Like I said, there's no reason for you to even have this on your radar at the moment. It's a laggard. It's dead. It's not going to do anything. So, yeah. Sleep's been not that great after the newborn, but it's really cool to see my daughter grow up, and it's been really good 3 months. So, do you have any student discounts? You can email hello@deepvue.com. We will likely ask you for a student ID or something and give you a discount. Can you highlight some of the positives of Deepvue over market search? I can sit here and all day and do that. Um, it's much more robust. It's not tied to a single trading methodology. It has stage analysis built in. It has indicators that we've custom created that directly address pitfalls for traders when they start out. We've had 11 updates to the platform this month. Market Surge has had 11 updates in the last 20 years. We're bringing in guidance data. We're going to match their fundamentals one for one by the end of the month. We're going to bring in journaling, and you can build any fundamental or technical scan that you can possibly think of in Deepvue. And it's all completely customizable to your liking, and fits any and all trading strategies, including canceling. So that's what Deepvue is. Again, I am a co-founder, so I'll have a huge bias. But I think what we are building is a lot more robust with the times, looks a lot better, easy to navigate, is a lot faster. Something as little as earnings are reported. We have the numbers in the platform within 3 minutes. Market Surge will have them within 1 hour, right? So you got to get with the times. You have to, and cost, right? Cost, you 179 a month and $50 a month. And we're going to include journaling at this cost as well, right? Um, so there's that. If none of that makes sense, then there's cost as well to it. Um, and we're always improving. We're not saying we're the best. We never say that. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for more stability, more data, getting things in the platform. We're always open. We're front facing with our failures, and we're open to feedback. We're listening to customers. We have these calls where we listen to you guys. We're crowdsourcing what we're doing. So all these things, I feel the co-founders are highly motivated. We're reinvesting 100% of what subscription money that we have right back into development, right? So that we can build even faster. We're hiring better support teams. We're doing one-on-one onboardings. So all these things, um, is we feel we want to be the best platform out there, right? So and we can't just say that, we have to do things to make it that as well. So we're going to bring in crypto data, forex data. We don't want you to go to another platform to check prices. We want 99.9% stability and uptime is one of our goals. So these are all things that um, we want to do, and over a span of time we'll get to do them. And I think we're already, on pace to be a lot better, right? Watch lists are more robust. Alerts module over by March will be the best alerts module, even if you compare it to TC 2000, I would say, or TradingView, it'll be better than those. So we have plans. We're executing those plans, and we've gotten a lot better in the last 6 to 8 months. We've matured as a company as well. So um, that's my pitch. Again, all of that. But Marcus Smith's also great. Like people use that platform as well, and that's perfectly fine. So, can you make bite-sized videos for DB features and walkthroughs? Yes, we will definitely do that. We will also focus on like 1 to 3 minute clips covering one particular feature on our YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks here as well. We have access to full crypto data, and the integration is happening over the last week or so. And I think by the end of Feb, we'll have crypto data in the platform. All crypto symbols data going back to 2010 on the 1 minute time frame, and up in real time from all popular exchanges, crypto exchanges. Okay, I think we'll leave it at that. There's 56 other questions. Obviously, I will not get to uh, all of those. I like the pitch I made. Thanks, Ron. I kind of like what I said. We might clip that and put it somewhere. Um, but yeah, I hope this was helpful. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your Saturdays to be here. The recording will be out if you're watching this after the fact. Any questions, anything that you guys feel is not clear, always reach out, contact us, support. Someone will answer you. And I saw the ideas that you guys have for the next ones, post analysis and doing deeper dives into the price chart and action, that type of stuff. We do have a book coming out in April. I'll plug that. We've been working on it for over a year. The last chapter has over 240 charts covering 100 plus market winners. And we just submitted the final copy to Harriman House. So I think the chart pack at the end of that book will be worth the $30 that you'll pay for the book as well. So we put a lot of huge effort into that as well. So with that, I wish you guys a good weekend, and I'll see you in the next webinar. Thanks so much.